There's light pollution everywhere. It's a bit of a it's a strange term. Um, in my mind, I see it as poor design. I'm forever walking around at night looking at poor lighting design and seeing it everywhere. And there's solutions to this, but people need to understand what you're trying to achieve with the light. There's a lot of waste in the system there that can be refined.
With LED lights, the white light is quite bright. And when you walk along a white light path, your pupils will constrict. Once they constrict, you lose contrast. So the dark seems darker and the bright seems brighter to you because there's less light coming through. So even though there may be more light on the path itself, it actually seems as though anything just off the path is very, very dark. And I noticed that people weren't feeling safe walking along a white lit path because the blacks were very black. And as you know, it's a path through a reserve, there are trees there, and you can't see who's behind trees. And so, you're walking with a level of fear attached to it.
I think there's an emerging and ongoing field of study about the effects of light spill and pollution, as you call it, not only for humanity, but also for many, many species of animals, microbats, birds, different animals that are having their natural cycles affected by light spill. And you only have to, for example, if you drive on a busy highway, you can see the microbats flying around the tall light towers that mark intersections, and you'll see how the bats are drawn down because that's where the insects are, sort of gathering. So the effects of light is really quite powerful for a whole range of nocturnal species. Owls. We have boobook owls and other owls, and now we have barn owls, and they're all being influenced. Their flight behaviours, their flight patterns are all being influenced by light spill, and as these cities like Melbourne, Adelaide, and Sydney, as they continue to grow out into new areas, there is that concern that the effects of light will have maybe not good effects for the traditional flight patterns and the behaviour of these species.
One of the species that we focus on the Sunshine Coast is our loggerhead turtles. One of the major threats that exist for loggerhead turtles on the Sunshine Coast is light pollution. And that is because both our adult and predominantly our hatchling turtles are severely impacted in terms of their sea finding behaviour. To watch a hatchling emerge from a nest on what I visually would look at and think is a dark beach, and for it to have that real confusion as to where the ocean is, for me it's quite distressing. Like in terms of what I see for our future, I see enormous problems in the environment when this is happening now.
I think it was the first year after I started, and I spoke to a person and they were complaining how dark it was in the street, that their daughter was a night shift worker. She did nursing, and when she was coming home, the street was dark and she was afraid for her safety. And I went, right, not a problem. We can do something about that. We can increase the light levels. And so I got back into my car. I typed in the next address to drive to, and my GPS said that it was the house next door. And so, I got out of the car, walked up to the guy in the house next door, and he was complaining about how bright the light was in the street and, lit up his house like a football stadium, and can I please do something about it? And I thought, well, lighting's subjective. Everybody has a different perspective as whether the light is too bright or too dark based on their situation.
I get involved in a lot of lighting projects for sporting infrastructure. The sporting clubs are our key stakeholder in this. A lot of the sporting codes are more is better, and so the brighter it is, the better it is. The reality of that is I in particular, try and control our lighting design to meet the standards, not to exceed the standards. I'm not going to accept a 170 lux lighting design on a 100 lux facility. That's sloppy design, it's poor performance, it's inefficient. Some of the old lighting designs using old lighting technology had very sloppy distribution, and one of the main reasons is they're trying to push light across 70 meters away from the pole, and to do that you've got to angle the light out, and so that they're actually spilling vertical light, just massive amounts of it.
If you go back, say, 20 years, the most common form of lighting for sheds and industrial spaces was the fluorescent light tube, which is a very effective device, but they were very non-directional. They would throw light in every direction, whereas now we have LED light, LED light, and halogen and other things that are much more directed towards the ground.
You need better luminaires that have better light control, better lenses, so that you get the distribution of light more uniform. The funding is what's really preventing a get on with it exercise, but the old technology has a limited life, so it will happen anyway. So it's not like you're not going to keep these old lights there for another 30 years. It won't be possible.
In recent years, we've made a huge effort to address a lot of the public lighting infrastructure within 100 metres of our nesting beaches. We've done a very good job of addressing those direct light impacts to the beach. However, the light glow from the residential areas within, 10 to 15 kilometres of the beach has increased. And so despite the effort, we still have the light glow impacts that are impacting turtle hatchlings. And that is really probably a statement that we could be reflective of across our whole coastline. We're not necessarily seeing, dark sky principles being applied in terms of our community at large. I think, there's a huge amount of people that we could be talking to about this issue and raising awareness. I think the market that we need to target with our awareness is the non-environmentally conscious market.
I guess the challenge is convincing residents and other people that the lighting that's probably more suitable for dark sky purposes is just as safe for public space users on the ground, so that you can still walk across the park at night time, and it doesn't have to be a bright blue white sort of a shiny light. You can have more mellow lighting. You can still see where you're going, you can still see other people if they're around, and so you can have a sense of safety.
It's about understanding what you're trying to achieve. You need to have a standard to work to, and then it's about finding a lighting designer and requesting lighting designs to achieve that objective, and then scrutinizing it, because most of those lighting designs that come through are often conservative designs, and so it's worth having a look at and asking the questions about what's the color of the light that we've used here, what's the height of the poles, what's the tilt angle, and these types of questions are all environmental improvement performance issues. I'm finding a high level of cooperation with everyone I work with here. The lighting designers are very keen to listen to what I am trying to achieve. Some of the venues had 4 poles, but they need 6, so I actually turn up and put 2 new poles in, and the lighting performance is boosted significantly. And all the problem lights that were on the other poles have all been angled down because they're not trying to overachieve what they were trying to do before and spilling light onto houses and stuff. So the better you distribute the light, the less light you need. So which means the light fittings will become more efficient. And when you start talking more efficient, less power, people start listening.
They have brought in policies which restrict the use of certain lighting in the dark sky area itself. So if you were to build a house or to put a shed up or those sort of developments, you have to have lights that are very low to the ground or throw their light down to the ground and don't spill light up out.
We look at designs these days and say, how am I going to get into this building if I'm in a wheelchair? So we look at the Disability Act, and we build ramps, and we put in escalators, and we put in lifts, and we do things to be able to help people who have a disadvantage. Someone asked me and said, you know, how many people in Australia have a disability? And I put my hand up and I said, every single one of them, because every one of us age, and as we age, things stop working, right? And one of the things that stops working is your eyesight. You know, it gets pretty bad the older you get. I can attest to that, you know, and I don't think, you know, we kind of have a, you know, an average. You know, we design lighting for the average. But I think smart lighting in the future is perhaps to take into consideration those who are sensitive to it.
People with dark sky understanding within our council team are being engaged in these projects at design phase now, whereas previously we were playing catch up because the awareness about the issue just wasn't at a high enough level. The National Light Pollution Guidelines have made an enormous difference. It just gives us the tools and the language to ensure that people understand the issue, but also being able to communicate that with our community, with our technical experts, with our engineers, with our designers and landscape designers. Our council has been really proactive in this space. We have an urban lighting master plan, and that has really given us a platform to be able to address lighting at a local scale. You know, we've had great projects that have been quick, easy, cheap wins that have given us the opportunity to have a proof of concept that this design, this approach, being smart about our lighting, it works.
Yeah.
And having that to be able to leverage and access greater opportunities for funding is really, really important. Certainly our partnership that we had a year and a half ago with the University of the Sunshine Coast and the Department of Environment and Science. And it's allowed us to translate the research into management. And that is really, I guess, the focus for us is ensuring that our work is evidence-based. I think where we can motivate our community is not necessarily in the environment space. It's not necessarily the value of the dark sky. I think in many cases, it will be about the hip pocket and giving them really simple ways that they can you know, make changes either in their homes or in the workplace, in their commercial businesses, where that it would make a big difference.
If you're scared of the dark and you don't like being outside, then you're probably not going to change someone's mind so much. But if you're a, you know, perhaps again younger people, as a child growing up, if you know a child is encouraged to see dark spaces as a positive thing, as an exciting thing, then they'll grow up with that desire and interest, and then to look above the darkness into the night sky and experience the magnificence of the heavens, you know, of the stars above, and to make sense of them, you know, to understand the constellations and you know where they are in the zodiac, and you know those sort of things that you know if you can develop an interest in those, then people will demand of their public officials, you know, greater access to those areas.